Hey everyone, hopefully the audio is working here. We're going to screen share. So today we are going to talk about the structure of an affirmative case, and we're going to talk about how it helps tell the story you're trying to tell. So last video we talked about what the basic story of the affirmative is. Now we're going to look at the structure of your argument and see how it helps you make that story to the judge. So the different parts we're going to talk about today are the plan text, inherency, and advantages. And each advantage, we're going to talk about uniqueness, solvency, and impact. So if you've never heard those words, if you don't know what those words are, don't worry about it. We are going to get to them in this video today and talk about them briefly. So we did talk a little bit about the plan text in the last video. The plan text is the actual text of what you want the judge to do. So remember we said it usually starts with something like the United States federal government should, and then do a thing, right? This year in the 2020-2021 season, what we're arguing is that the United States federal government should pass a law banning police officers from using firearms, using or carrying firearms, something like that, right? And basically that's just a fancy way of saying police shouldn't have guns. And every plan text is like that. It has the actual formal language of, what law or whatever you're trying to pass. And then there's a relatively simple meaning to what it actually means. And at the end of the debate, like we said, a judge will either choose to pass that plan or not pass that plan, but everything else in the whole debate all revolves around that plan text, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to pass that plan. The second thing we're going to have is a piece of inherency. So you should have one plan text, and there's only one in the file, but you should always read it in the 1AC. Next thing we're going to have is one piece of inherency. So I think there's 2 or 3 pieces of inherency in the actual evidence file. You're going to just choose one of them, the one you think is the best, and you're going to read that in the debate. But before you choose, we have to ask, what is inherency? What makes a good piece of evidence for inherency? So what inherency is a piece of evidence that tells your judge why the plan is not being done currently. So if we're saying that the plan is we should ban officers from using or carrying guns while they're on the job, why isn't that being passed right now? What's stopping that from being passed? We need a piece of inherency to tell us why the plan hasn't been passed right now. And the reason for that is we need this evidence because we want to show the judge that if they don't pass this plan, it's not going to happen, right? Like we talked about before, they have to imagine themselves as the president, and you're an advisor trying to tell them something to do. And they have to know that if they don't pass the plan you want them to pass, it's not going to get passed by somebody else. It's not like the states or someone else is going to do their job for them and pass this law. They are the ones who have to pass this law in order to get it done. Sometimes inherency can be a little bit confusing for new debaters because when you read a piece of inherency evidence, it almost sounds like it's an argument against your affirmative. Like it'll say something like, oh, the president won't pass this law because he doesn't think it's a good idea. He or she doesn't think it's a good idea. Or the Congress doesn't think it's a good idea. Or there's powerful interest groups who think it's a bad idea. That's not an argument against the case, right? It's not an argument against your plan. It's just an argument about how things are today and why the world won't allow the plan to happen. So whether the plan's a good idea or not is not related to the inherency. Inherency is just saying, in the world the way it is today, the plan will not be passed. So if the judge doesn't pass the plan, it's not going to happen. And all the good things that the affirmative wants to do by passing the plan, they're not going to happen. So the judge has to feel compelled or obligated. They have to want to pass the plan if they want the good things to happen. Okay, and what are those good things? So for each year for the affirmative, we basically have 2 advantages. And an advantage is a little set of arguments that tells the judge what the good thing will happen, what good thing will happen as a result of passing the plan. So far we know what the plan is and why it's not being passed, but now we need to know, okay, if it did pass, why would that be good? The advantage tells the judge why it would be good. And each advantage has 3 parts. There's uniqueness, solvency, and impact. Each affirmative, each 1AC, should have at least one full advantage. So that means you need one piece of uniqueness, one piece of solvency, and one piece of impact evidence, all from the same advantage. Now, as you go on, as you get more experienced, maybe you get faster at debate, maybe you're more efficient, you might have the opportunity to read both advantages or to read more evidence for one advantage than you normally would. That's fine. You can totally do that. But just make sure when you read an advantage that you have one piece of uniqueness, one solvency, and one impact evidence. Otherwise, it won't be complete and you won't be telling the full story. Okay, so let's talk about these three parts. So for each advantage, they have uniqueness. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So we're talking about uniqueness. So uniqueness is what the world is currently like. Remember in the advantages, it goes three parts: uniqueness, solvency, impact. So the uniqueness just tells us what the world is like right now. It relates to the other parts of the advantage and to the plan because when we get to solvency, the uniqueness is gonna help us show how solvency changes the world, how the plan changes the world. When we get to impact, uniqueness is gonna be important because the impact will show how that change is good. So uniqueness sort of sets a line to tell us how the world is, and then the rest of the advantage, the rest of the plan tells us how we move based on how the world is right now. So for example, let's say you're trying to pitch this plan to the president, and what your plan does is it increases the economy, it improves the economy. It would be good to know how well the economy is going right now compared to what it would, right? So if you're saying it'll create millions of new jobs, it'll increase the economy by 1%, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if the economy is already making a bunch of new jobs, if it's already growing really quickly, then it's not really that much of an increase, right? Or if the economy is getting worse and it's losing a bunch of jobs, it's causing unemployment, then the plan's a really good idea, right? Because it helps reverse that trend and create more good things to happen. In your own personal life, when you choose to do things, choose to do anything in your life, you do it because it'll get you something that's worth it to you, right? Like, let's say, if you think about like your favorite snack or candy or soda or whatever, if you want to pay, like, if it costs $1 to buy that thing, if you had $1 and you had 0 of whatever that favorite thing is, would you pay to buy it? Probably, right? Because it'd probably be worth it to you. But let's say you had 100 of that thing that you like and you had $1. Would you pay $1 to buy another one of them to get 101 of them? Probably not, right? Because you already have 100. That's already more than you can use. So the uniqueness helps show where we are in the world right now. Are we at 0 candy bars or are we at 100? Is the economy really strong or is it really weak? And then that helps tell us, when we do the plan, how does it change the world? Okay, next is the solvency. And also you should have one piece of uniqueness, and the uniqueness should be pretty clear about explaining how the world is right now, right? Next is solvency. So solvency shows how the plan changes the world, changes the uniqueness to make it better or to prevent something bad. And it's called solvency because this is how a problem is solved, right? So when we're talking about solvency, we're saying, does the plan actually solve the problem? Does it actually change the world? How much? So for example, let's say your plan is to prevent an asteroid from hitting Earth by launching a nuke at it, right? Asteroid's coming towards Earth, it's gonna hit, we got to do something about this. So we're gonna launch a nuke at it. If your evidence says that a nuke would be enough to knock the asteroid off course so that it wouldn't hit Earth, that would be solvency, right? Because you're saying that your plan to launch the nuke would solve the problem. So the solvency evidence very clearly says how you can change the current situation to make it better, to make a definitive change, right? And the uniqueness for that situation would be being able to say that there is an asteroid coming on its way to hit Earth. So uniqueness is asteroid coming, solvency is we can make it not hit the Earth by launching a nuke at it. Easy stuff. Okay, next is the impact to the advantage. Oh, and you should also have one piece of solvency, of course. Next is the impact. The impact is an argument about why the judge should care about what you change about the world. It shows how serious the outcome of passing or not passing the plan would be. So for the last example about the asteroid, if the asteroid hits Earth, everyone could die, right? So that's a pretty important thing. Most people would agree that that's bad. So if the plan has a chance to knock the asteroid off course and save everybody on Earth, then that's a pretty good thing to do. I think most judges would agree. But remember, in order to tell that story, you need all three parts. You need to be able to say the asteroid is coming, it's going to hit Earth, that it can be knocked out of the way by doing the plan, and that if you did that, it would protect everyone on Earth, right? If you lose even one of those arguments, like if you lose the uniqueness, the negative says, no, the asteroid's not on course to hit Earth. It's like gonna be way off. So we don't need to do the plan. Negative's probably gonna win, right? Because they totally took out your advantage. All the reasons for doing it that are good, they totally took it out. If they make the argument that a nuke wouldn't be enough to knock it off course, then the plan wouldn't solve the problem. So even if we do the plan, it won't change anything about the way the world is. It doesn't change the uniqueness. We're still going to get hit by the asteroid. So if the negative wins the solvency arguments, if the affirmative doesn't solve, there's no reason to do the affirmative, right? But let's say the negative doesn't talk about uniqueness, doesn't talk about solvency. They only talk about the impact. Let's say they say, well, the asteroid isn't really that big. So yeah, it's going to hit, but it's going to burn up in the atmosphere and like it's going to crumble away and not ever hit anyone or anything. So there's no reason to do the plan because there's no impact to the asteroid coming to Earth. So it doesn't matter that's coming. It doesn't matter that we could knock it off course with a nuke. We don't need to because it's not going to have any impact, right? So if you're the affirmative, you need to win all three parts of the advantage in order to tell the story that you want to tell. So let's look at a really simple example, not related to the topic this year, just a general thing. So let's say from the last example, last video, that you're hungry and you want to get dinner. So what should you do? We put out about 4 different plans that you could have there. Let's look at one. So the plan to go to Taco Bell to buy dinner for the family. I'm not saying you personally, but like, let's say you and someone in your family go drive over there and do it. So that's the plan, go to Taco Bell to buy food. The inherency is right now, there's no plan to go to Taco Bell. There might be a plan to do something else for dinner. You might be going to a really fancy restaurant or cooking or something, but that doesn't matter. The plan we're talking about is going to Taco Bell. And as of right now, it doesn't seem like there's any plan to do that until you pitch it to the rest of your family members, right? So what's the advantage of going to Taco Bell? Let's say the first advantage is healthy food. So the uniqueness might be something like not eating is really unhealthy if we're not going to have dinner, or eating at other places like McDonald's, or even cooking something at home if it's not healthy or whatever is unhealthy. So it's making comparative, right? It's saying compared to other options, Taco Bell is a good healthy option. Taco Bell has good options on their menu. They have like Fresca, whatever options. And I should note, I'm not getting paid by Taco Bell to say this. This is just an example, okay? So uniqueness is Taco Bell has healthy foods, has a healthy menu that you can buy from. And the other options that we have right now are not healthy. So solvency is Taco Bell has healthy and fresh food, right? Advantage 1, healthy food. We're not going to have healthy food right now. If we went to Taco Bell, we would have healthy food. Okay, so let's say you prove these points. Is that enough to win a debate? Maybe, but probably not, right? Because you haven't actually explained anything about why healthy food is good or preferable to non-healthy food. And I think this is where debaters sometimes get tripped up, is when you have some of these stories or some of these examples, before you get to the impact, debaters might already agree that the impact, that what's going on in the story is either a bad or good thing. Like for the asteroid, for example, say, okay, the asteroid's coming. We have to shoot a nuke at it to get out of the way, otherwise it'll hit Earth. Okay, I think intuitively people can think that an asteroid hitting Earth would be a bad thing. You maybe don't need to read impact arguments to it, but that's not right. You want to read an impact argument because you want to convince your judge that this is a really pressing issue, something that should be taken care of, and that it should be at the top of their mind, right? Because as the judge, as the president, they probably have a lot of other things they're thinking about, right? And when the negative comes back to argue against you, they're going to say things like, oh, we could use this money for other stuff, or we don't have to do this right now. Or if there's other things like, this doing the case might cause bad things to happen. And those bad things are more important than the good things that the case does. So the impact is really, really important because you want to be able to show that this is something that should be right at the top of the mind of the judge, and they should vote on it. It should be super important to them, right? And the impact does that for you. So the impact of this would be eating healthy food is good because it helps you grow and be happy. So presumably, if you're talking to your parents or guardian and you tell them, I looked at the Taco Bell menu, I want to get like these 3 or 4 items. They're all really healthy. Look at the nutrients, and it'll help me grow and be happy. And, I'll love you so much, parent, if you let me do this. That would be a more convincing argument to them than just saying, we should go to Taco Bell because I'm hungry, right? So putting together your argument in this way to help tell a story is really more compelling than just doing it sort of off the top of your head. So that's why we have a structure to these affirmative cases, is that you want to make sure you have one piece of everything you need, right? You want to have a plan text. You want to have one piece of inherency. You want to have one advantage, and each advantage should have uniqueness, solvency, and impact to it so that you're telling a full story. This might seem like a lot, but it's actually only 4 pieces of evidence and 1 plan text. So since you have 4 minutes in your 1AC, if it takes you only 1 minute to read each piece of evidence, you're going to be fine. So you really shouldn't have to do that much highlighting or editing or anything to make sure that you can get through it. It should be pretty much good to go for you. So looking at this structure, this is how the structure relates to the story. And when you look at the structure from this view, the story should be really, really clear to you. And your job as the affirmative is to read your arguments in the 1AC. And then as the debate goes forward, answer the negatives arguments and make sure your story stays intact, right? That you can keep telling it and tell it accurately and tell it with these parts. So I hope this all makes sense. In the next video, we're going to get into the actual evidence. I think I'm probably going to have to break that video up into at least 2, maybe 4 different videos, because we do have a lot of evidence to go through. So if this isn't quite clicking yet, or you're not quite sure about all the parts, don't worry about it. When we get to the evidence part, we're going to look at the actual evidence, and the evidence is going to be really clear about how it tells the story. And when we look at it up close or even way back, it's going to be really helpful to look at the evidence and figure it out this way. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this all makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video.